Welcome to our Committee of Adjustment meeting for Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. I'm going to wish everybody who's watching us hope we have a good meeting, and welcome our committee. Welcome the staff that's part of our committee who's going to be here tonight, and from the viewing public. We had a published agenda that was on our website. That's there, that lists out the reports. So from there, then I will ask if there are any pecuniary interests with regards to the agenda for committee members. No, there is none. Okay, and maybe before I start, we have Member Allen, Member Clark, Member Little, and myself, Member McQueen. I'll be chairing this evening's meeting, and Member Dubick is absent for today's meeting. So moving forward, then on that agenda, we do have the two consent cancellations, and 2 minor variances for this evening's meeting. And I do need a mover and a seconder for the minutes of August 12th, 2025. Would somebody care to move those? Member Little and Member Clark. Any discussion on those minutes from committee members? If not, okay, all in favor of those minutes? That's carried unanimously, so thank you for that. So moving on then with regards to our first, again, we have 2 files tonight. The first one is 4.1 for application B11 2025 and A10 2025 for 30 Main Street East. So this public meeting is called under section 53 and 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended with respect for an application for consent file B11 2025 and for minor variance file A10 2025 affecting lands owned by Camaro, and that's with Alexander, Frederick, and Camaro, and Julie Ann. And just a legal description is Lot 9, Part B, PL 582 Markdale, Grey Highlands. Civic address is 30 Main Street East. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard class mail on the 26th day of August 2025 to the property owner and to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. Under the Planning Act, the applicant, the minister, or specified person or public body has the ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of Grey Highlands to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. It is important to note that if you wish to be mailed a copy of a notice of decision and you do not live within 60 meters of the subject property, you must provide your request in writing to the Planning Department of the municipality of Grey Highlands. The electronic registration does not represent your written request. Staff can provide direction to you in applying in writing for a request for notice. At this time, the committee will hear a presentation by the applicant or their agent. So, Madam Secretary Treasurer, do we have somebody representing this application?
Thank you, Chair. We have Matt Rapke, who is the agent for this file, who will be speaking.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Rapke.
How are you?
We're doing well. It's still summer, so.
For now. Would Secretary Treasurer mind sharing her screen and going to figure 3 while I talk through this so we got a visual? While she's pulling that up, I'll begin. So this property is at the corner of Main Street East and Walker Street in Markdale. It's about 1,000 square meters. It has 2 existing buildings. Both have been there for quite some time. I think everyone's familiar with them. It's the car wash at the north end of the lot and what's currently being used as Grey Highlands Eye Care, a commercial building towards the south end. My client wants to sever this property in half to separate those 2 existing structures. Both lots would comply with the dimensional provisions of the zoning bylaw and the use provisions. The uses exist or permitted the sizes are sufficient. There's sufficient frontage and area for both lots. There's a couple elements here that have to be figured out with separating these two buildings through this process. So one is as you can see in this diagram, the cars come in to the property from Main Street East, and then they drive past the eye care building. They park there, and then they back out, and then they drive to the north, or they're supposed to drive to the north, to the car wash property and exit out there, because it's really only one-way traffic with the width of the existing parking layout. So in order to sever this and not cause issues for cars pulling into those angled spaces and then having to go back out on Main Street, there's going to need to be an easement over what will be the retained parcel. So the car wash is going to be the retained parcel for access. And you can see I've laid out kind of a couple. Those will become blocks or parts on a reference plan, because there's going to be different permissions applied to those various parts. Because the other tricky element here is the existing utilities that come from Walker Street between these two structures. And there's lots of pictures from during construction that shows that these are all there, and they're somewhere between the two buildings. The exact precise location is not known. So if we sever it in half between those two buildings and then just apply an easement in each direction for each parcel in favor of one another for utility maintenance, that will address any future concerns there where those have to be repaired or replaced. But in combination with the access requirements, that then causes this to break up into a couple different parts to account for the different permissions that will be applied to each one. So that is part of the consent request. You can see in this diagram here, there's a blue line connecting these two buildings. So the water currently comes from Walker Street into the car wash, and then there is a pipe that is underground from the car wash and supplies the eye doctor building. That won't work long-term. So a condition of this will be that a new water connection will have to be provided to the eye doctor building straight from the municipal property, most likely on Walker Street. So that is in planning staff's report there with the conditions for that to be addressed. Both buildings do currently have their own sanitary connection, and me and my client verified this. We popped the lid off at the clean out and ran a camera through there and sent that footage to Sean and Public Utilities and confirmed that was all good there. And sorry, the other element is the eye doctor building here. The downspouts are piped underground into in front of the car wash building. Like there's storm that was all put in place back in the day. Again, there's photos of all of this. So that's still going to keep functioning the way it does. But in order to give them continued permission to do that, there will be another easement for stormwater to allow them to outlet there. That's all the kind of easement elements. There's also a variance component here. Again, nothing's changing in terms of the use or physically other than the pipe that's going to be put in. But the new lot creation kind of triggers conformity with things like setbacks and parking. So the parking's not changing. Both lots are deficient currently. You can see I've illustrated in yellow the parking area here. Most of the parking that is physically available doesn't actually qualify as a parking space in the eyes of the zoning bylaw because it's not on the property. It's actually primarily within the right of way. And this is shown in an older site plan of the site that was, I believe, provided to the municipality at the time of permit. So those don't count. Again, they're not changing, but we got to recognize that the eye doctor one's only going to have 3 spaces and the car wash is going to have 2 spaces in alignment with what currently exists. And then the setback requirements from the lot lines get changed, or what they currently are changes because what is currently the front lot line or rear lot line or side lot line gets changed as a result of the severance. So creating this new lot between new lot. So the line between the two buildings for the severed lot, which is the eye doctor one, that mutual lot line becomes a rear lot line. So we need relief there for a 1.5 meter setback. And then the retained lot also needs relief for the rear yard because its rear yard is now what used to be the interior lot line and the front is on Walker Street. And other than that, that's kind of the scope of the request. So that's what's going on. My report lays out the conformity with the policy. Like, this isn't really a policy one here. There's no new use. The lots, the OP doesn't have any requirements for minimum lot size and frontage. The zoning requirements are met in that regard. It's just figuring out the easements and the infrastructure connections. So that's kind of the scope of what's going on here. I'll leave it there unless there's any questions from committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rapke, for your report. At this point from committee members, are there any questions up until now? Okay, there may be lots of opportunity to ask questions. So then we'll be back to my script here then. Page here. So then from this point then, our municipal planner will advise any comments received and provide an overview of the recommendations contained in that report. So I guess Ashley. I don't see. Oh, there she is. Good evening.
Sorry, I had myself muted too. Hi. So I believe, yeah, we're just going to share my screen really quickly. So I did create just a quick presentation just to kind of walk through this. And Mr. Rapke already did a great job at trying to highlight this one with nothing new changing. It's in terms of meeting policy, it's pretty straightforward. But we'll just go to the next slide. And the next one, sorry.
So just Ashley, how do you say that their name? Clamaro?
Clarmo, I would imagine.
Clarmo.
Mr.
Okay.
Rapke might be able to pronounce
Okay, I just
it better.
wanted.
Yeah, the last name's Claremont.
Claremont. Okay, thank you for that clarity. Thank you.
So as Mr. Refke had mentioned, the intent here is to sever the rear portion of the property from the front and create one additional lot. So we'll go to the next slide. I did try to highlight this, and I will mention that my proposal is actually backwards. So the retained is where the yellow is and the severed is where the red is. So that's me being a bit dyslexic with my my drawing there. But for the sake of this, you're seeing that one new lot being created on Walker Street. Next slide. So when we looked at this one, it was identified early on that a minor variance would also be required in order to accommodate this consent. It's mostly due, as Mr. Repke mentioned, to the deficient parking and loading spaces, as well as the changes to the lot boundaries. So those rear yards needed to get recognized based on the existing buildings that are already there. So again, because no new development is being proposed, as I mentioned before, it's pretty straightforward to show consistency with the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Next slide. Yeah, the only other piece that I want to mention was that, again, from the fact that there's no development happening, the request is obviously minor in nature and resulting in no visual changes to the property and considered desirable and appropriate when we're looking at those 4 tests of the minor variance. So next slide. Just quickly, yeah. So just wanted to highlight again what the staff recommendations were here. There are some conditions being imposed or recommended if the committee is comfortable with proceeding. One of which is the requirement to connect directly to municipal water and sewer lines within the servicing boundary. Also to register the easement, as Mr. Repke had mentioned, for traffic and making sure that that exit is happening off of Walker Street. And then just simply standalone conditions that are normally attributed to your consent applications the committee has seen prior to that. So that and the minor variance being approved, and we are recommending that happen as well.
Maybe can you read those? Generally, we get you to read off those conditions.
Yeah, just like all the ones that are here.
Yeah.
For sure, no problem. So the staff recommendation is that the consent application B11-2025 be approved subject to the following conditions, which is the payment of any outstanding municipal taxes, payment of the $300 severance approval fee, payment of the $2,000 parkland dedication fee, a minor variance be approved to address the deficient rear yard setbacks and parking space requirements on the retained lot to facilitate the lot creation, and then the minor variance also be approved to address the deficient rear yard setback and parking spaces and loading areas in the severed to facilitate lot creation. And that each individual lot be required to connect directly to a municipal water sewer line within the servicing boundary. Water and sewer cannot be interconnected between the severed and retained lot. The applicant registers easements on the subject property to address traffic patterns that originate through the existing entrance on Main Street East and exit off of an entrance on Walker Street, and that a reference plan be completed and a digital and hard copy be filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of an exemption from the reference plan be received from the registrar. Draft copy of the reference plan be provided to the Secretary Treasurer for review and approval to registration of the survey. So I did note that there's a piece missing, so I did add something in there, but I'm pretty sure the motion as written has the minor variance captured as one to rectify the severed and the retained issues.
Okay. And okay, so from that your report then, Mr. Rupke, do you agree to those conditions?
Yep.
For your client? Okay, all right, committee members, do you have any questions, comments with regards to this file? Go ahead, Member Little.
Thank you, Chair. I could be mistaken and misremembering something here, but normally doesn't the recommendation is to approve the minor variance and approve the consent. But I thought there was some verbiage around what exactly we were approving in a concise form. Am I mistaken there?
So at the very beginning of the report, they'll have the application, what the application is for, proposal, right? And then I'd have to go back to a previous meeting, Member Little, but you're saying it's more defined. It's like a motion in itself. That's
Yeah, I guess it could just be, difference in style of what the planners do.
right.
As a member of the committee, I find it helpful to have it, outlined. And so on page, on my numbering here, page 3 of 40, for the variance, it actually does have what is the variance seeking relief, and then all the different parts where it is needing to be, the different parts that need to have a variance applied to it. So it certainly isn't going to stand in the way of my decision, but I'm just curious, is it just a difference in style, or because I do find it helpful to have it, summarized. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
So I was just going to suggest going back to the previous minutes of our last meeting and going back to our just to deviate to what you're saying. If you look at the minutes from the last August 12th and a file, if you're able to click on that, that would probably zoom into what you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm just trying to address your concern here, just going back to looking at a previous
Right.
Right. So I'm just going through those minutes. Talks about the effective lands, the application. So it just says minor variance. So for that was a minor variance. So it just says it was approved because it was all supported by the members, but it doesn't really in the minutes. It does say therefore the applicant is requesting, and it has that in the minutes that sort of lays that out. Ashley, do you have any comments here or just on the sense of that?
Yeah, certainly, Chair McQueen. So it is just a personal preference on both of them. So if there's a wish for us to start including what exactly is being stipulated in the recommendation, and I would actually agree, that is very handy to have. So this is exactly what's being recommended. You could almost take that and throw it in the draft motion, so there's consistency there as well. So I would agree, Member Little. I think at this point it's just a matter of a few planners on the files, and we'll catch our groove.
Right, and but all the the verbal or the Zoom meeting itself is capturing all discussion. It's capturing, as I had you read out the conditions, the applicant agrees to those conditions. I always do that. But certainly moving forward, if I guess in the sense if there was ever appeal, you want it clear what the committee was approving and all that stuff, and so. Member Little, just to carry on.
Yeah, like I say, it doesn't stand in the way of my decision or impede my decision, and I understand its preference. But I think it's just helpful when it comes time to cast your vote that there it is right there, what you're voting on.
Right.
And I just find that helpful. That's all, your Mr.
So-
Chair. Thank you.
So if I look at the agenda on that, so it does, so for today's agenda, 4.1, it does speak to B11 2025, A10 2025, 30 Main Street. And it does say the consent application B11 be approved subject to the following. If you look at the agenda, so I guess generally that's what we're supporting is, unless there's some changes to the conditions, which would be amendment or changes from that. But you do raise a really good point because you want to be very clear and concise of what we as committee members are approving and others as well. So I guess in the sense of the minutes, technically, because it has all those lists of conditions in there and lists out a number of those points, but it does that item on the agenda doesn't speak to all the variances and all the issues that were detailed in the planning report itself, but it does capture that in the report itself. So maybe moving forward, maybe there's, actually you could have that conversation and maybe, because it is a good point. Everybody likes to know what is being approved or denied or deferred, right? So.
Just to elaborate, the recommendation could say one thing and the request could have been something different. So it's very, yeah, it's probably best to have what the recommendation is and the verbiage of what's getting changed. So we'll take a look at that and hopefully get the next reports a little bit more standardized.
More specifically, if there's a condition added or deleted, probably from the report, that's probably important, or if there was a slight change or something like that. I mean, it's pretty straightforward from the vote itself. It's either approve, deny, or defer. That's the three things that, from a committee standpoint, that we're voting on for sure. But okay, any follow-up on that, Member Lou? Okay. Any other questions from committee members? No issues with the conditions that were laid out or read out? I should have asked that maybe first before we went to the applicant, but okay, I'm going to move on then to the public portion of this. At this time, any person attending this meeting wishing to object, support, or have general questions on the proposed consent or the minor variance, please indicate and state your name and address. So I'm going to go to our Secretary Treasurer if there's anybody wishing to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Anyone currently in attendance wishing to speak on this item can use the raise hand function in Zoom to indicate their wish to do so. If you are connected by phone, you may dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute. And looking at the list of attendees, there is no one that is indicating their wish to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you for that, Madam Secretary Treasurer. All right, so then any further discussion from committee members? Anything from either planner? Nothing? If not, then we will, as indicated, this is for, there are two. There is the, go back to that, the B11 2025 first is the consent, B11 2025. So I will go to that first, and then we'll go to the minor variance after that because it's connected to the consent itself. So your position on the consent, Member Allen?
I support the consent with the conditions as read.
Okay, thank you. Member Little?
I support the consent with conditions as read.
Okay, thank you. Member Clark?
Yes, I support the consent with the conditions as read.
Okay, thank you. And Member Dubik is away this evening, and myself, I also support the consent with the conditions that are read out, subject to a 20-day appeal period. Once it is mailed out, if there are no appeals during that 20 days, then Mr. Rapke, your client will be able to move forward with their severance portion. And I deem this that severance is carried. So now moving back to the minor variance, which is the A10 2025. So your position on the minor variance, Member Little?
I support the minor variance.
Okay, Member Clark.
I support the minor variance.
Okay, Member Allen.
I support the minor variance.
Okay, and Member Dubik is away or absent. And as chair, member McQueen, I do support the minor variance, subject to a 20-day appeal period from this date moving forward. If there are no appeals during that time, obviously the applicant can move on with the application, and I deem this minor variance is carried. Okay, well, Mr. Rocky, you got 20 some days to wait, and you can carry on with fulfilling those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have a good evening.
That year as well. Okay, so moving on to our agenda again, item 4.2 with regards to A11 2025, B12 2025, and B13 2025, which I believe those are those are consent cancellations. So we'll move on then. This with regards to this is for David Chapman's Ice Cream Limited. And this public meeting is called under section 53 and 45 of the Planning Act, RS 1990, as amended with respects to a minor variance, A11 2025, consent cancellation files B12 2025 and B13 2025, affecting lands owned by David Chapman's Ice Cream Limited. The legal description, hang on to your seat here. Firstly, part lot 98, concession 1, SWTSR Glenelg, part 1, plan 16R10940. Secondly, part lot 98 and 99, concession 1, SWTSR Glenelg, parts 2 to 15 included, plan 16R7326, parts 1 to 4 included, plan R16R7902, STGS139834, subject to an easement in the gross over parts of 1 to 3, plan 16R9964, as in GY 40835, the municipality of Grey Highlands, civic address 100 Chapman's Crescent. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard class mail on the 26th day of August 2025 to the property owner and to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. Under the Planning Act, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body has the ability to appeal the decision to the municipality of Grey Highlands to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. Section 5345 of the Planning Act states that an owner of land that was previously conveyed with a consent, or the owner's agent duly authorized in writing, may apply to council or the ministry, whichever is authorized to give consent in respect of the land at the time of the application, for the issuance of a certificate of cancellation of such consent. The certificate must provide that subsection 5012 does not apply in respect of the land that was the subject of the consent, and that subsection 53, bracket 3, bracket 5, as the case may be, applies subsequent conveyance or other transactions involving the land. It is important to note that if you wish to be mailed a copy of the notice of decision and you do not live within 60 meters of the subject property, you must provide your request in writing to the Planning Department of the municipality of Grey Highlands. The electronic registration does not represent your written request. Staff can provide direction to you in applying in writing for a request of notice. At this time, the municipal planner will advise of any comments received, provide overview of the proposal and recommendations contained in. So, Ashley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair McQueen. I'll just wait for that presentation to come up. Okay, so we are now going to walk through the two consent cancellation requests, which is B12 and B13, and a minor variance, which is A10. So as the committee is aware, Chapman's is in the process of a large-scale expansion of their food processing facility. The committee has recently approved a minor variance to recognize the deficient rear yard setback, as well as an increase in lot coverage for that food processing facility that's expanded into West Gray. And as you're aware, the construction of that facility is ongoing. Recently, however, it was noted that the expansion of the food processing facility is triggering a larger water sewer capacity requirement, which has resulted in the need to expand their private on-site sewage treatment facility. So the expansion is to take place over defined property lines based on the site plan that's recently been provided, and that raises some issues from a Planning Act perspective. So unfortunately, after we did take a good look at it and then got some a legal review over it as well, it was established that 2 consent cancellations, a deeming bylaw, and a second minor variance was required in order to permit that expansion of the sewage treatment facility where they proposed it. So I'll go through the next slide just to kind of show you the layout here. You have the subject property on the left, and this is not taking into account property boundaries at this point. This is the land that's owned by Chapman outside of what's owned in West Gray. And then you can see that proposed addition in the second photo to the right, the yellow expansion there that's taking place. So you can see it crossing over that property boundary, and that's what triggered the concern. So in order to rectify this, the property essentially has to merge on title. In order to do that, we needed to do a consent cancellation, but to also resolve further issues that could potentially happen down the road. There was also the recommendation to do a second consent cancellation in the deeming bylaw. That deeming bylaw has been passed by council on September 3rd, so we're doing the committee portion now. And we're also adding on the minor variance, and that there is specifically to recognize those deficient setbacks of currently existing buildings. So similarly to what we had before, once you change the boundaries of a lot, all of the buildings that are on that lot are technically no longer legally non-compliant, and you need to recognize them if there's deficiencies in place. So this one specifically is the building that's closest to Isla Street that's being recognized. And then we're also seeing that increase in lot coverage be requested from that 25% that the committee has already permitted to the 27% to accommodate that expansion of the sewage treatment plant. So next slide. So staff have completed a full review of the policy and regulations to ensure consistency, which was identified in the planning report. So what I'd like to sort of emphasize is that staff have not yet finalized the review of the design brief for the expansion of the private sewage treatment facility, as there is some information that remains outstanding for us to put together a complete review in the final okay. What I do need you guys to know is that we are working heavily with the applicant in securing the necessary info to get this to move forward properly. We did have some concerns internally about whether we should be recommending the minor variance moving forward, given that missing information. But we did converse with staff, with the CBO, other staff, and then myself recognizing the restrictions that can be added to site plan control. We are of the opinion that there are adequate controls in place to proceed with recommending approval of the minor variance and still ensuring that the public interest is maintained. So there are precautions that are put in place, or that will be put in place pending the decision by the committee to ensure that there's no health or safety risk associated with allowing the expansion of this facility to take place, because they wouldn't be allowed to actually let the effluent out of the building until all of the other precautions are put in place, specifically the conditional building permit, which was approved by council on September 3rd, and the site plan restrictions that we will be imposing. So what I did want to highlight that something to consider is that the applicant is proceeding at their own risk. So there is the possibility of changes being requested based on the peer review that it is being conducted. So that could lead to design change orders along the way, which could increase costs associated with the project in the long run. And that has been discussed with the applicant. So recognizing that there could be some design changes, staff have been working with the applicant and are recommending that due to the low impact of increasing the lot coverage from, let's say, 27 to 30%, We suggest going with the 30, just in case that building footprint needs to be increased a little bit larger to accommodate for the design changes that could potentially happen, which would eliminate their need to come back to the committee for a further minor variance. Just want to highlight here too, though, that the increase from their requested 27 to what we're saying go to 30 is only capable of being used for that private sewage treatment plant. So you can't just have another building pop up that's not related to the sewage treatment plant on this property. So specific to sewage treatment plant, if they don't use it for that, it's not there. So the odds are it'll stay at the 27. But just giving them a bit of leeway in case those design briefs suggest that they need to increase the size of the footprint and prevent them from needing to come back for a third minor variance on this expansion that's taking place. So as I mentioned before, the minor variance is also recognizing that deficient lot frontage on Isla Street, or not lot frontage, sorry, lot setback from Isla Street. And with all else, staff are recommending that the application be approved. In terms of comments, we haven't received any since the planning report was written, so they are status quo.
So you're recommend supporting A11 2025 and also supporting the B12 and B13 cancellations. Your report says A10.
Yeah, you're right, it does. It should say 11.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for that. We'll go back to our members then. At this point, committee members, do you have any questions to what has been presented to us from the municipal planner? I know there was a report there from Ron Davison, but I think it was mentioned that he was away this evening, so you sort of did both duties on that part. So there's no questions at this point. Okay, well then, since we've covered both sides with regards to the planner, the applicant's planner, and our municipal planner, well, at this time we're going to go to the public. And any person wishing to object or support or have general questions on the proposed minor variance, please indicate and state your name and address. So, Madam Secretary Treasurer, do we have anybody wishing to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Anyone currently in attendance wishing to speak on this item can use the raise hand function in Zoom to indicate their wish to do so. If you are connected to the meeting by phone, you may dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute. All right, Chair, it looks like no one has indicated their wish to speak on this item.
Okay, well, thank you. So, it looks like, I guess, just clarity to Ashley, to you, should we vote on the minor variance, or I guess we sort of need to do the consent cancellation both first and then do the minor variance. So, okay, that's what I'll do. So at this point, from committee members, any last comments with regards to the consent applications, which I'll ask first for B12 in your position, B13, and then I'll go back to the minor variance. There's no other questions, and your position on the consent cancellation B12 2025. So, Member Clark.
I support the consent cancellation.
Okay, thank you. Member Allen.
I support the consent cancellation.
Okay, Member Little.
I support the consent cancellation.
Okay, thank you. And Member Dubik is absent tonight, as myself. Member McQueen is chair. I also support the consent cancellation. I guess actually that just basically happens right away, I suppose, once this has been carried, right? So is that correct?
So to clarify, the consent cancellations, once they're completed, will go to the lawyers and then get registered. So once they're registered, then it's canceled, yes.
So that vote has carried unanimously. Okay, and then the B13 2025 consent cancellation, your position on that one, Member Allen.
I support the consent cancellation.
Member Little.
I support the consent cancellation.
Thank you. Member Clark.
I support the consent cancellation.
Thank you. Member Dubik is absent. And myself, as Member McQueen, I also support the consent cancellation and deem that one is carried. And going back then to the minor variance, A11-2025. Any further questions on that before I go to a vote? If not, then your position on that, Member Little.
I support the minor variance.
Member Clark.
I support the minor variance.
Thank you. Member Allen.
I support the minor variance.
Thank you. Member Dubik is absent, and myself as Member McQueen as chair. I also support A11-2025 minor variance, subject to a 20-day appeal period. If there are no appeals during that time, then they may proceed with their application, and I deem that minor variance is carried. Okay, thank you for that. Moving back now to our agenda. Is there any other business to be discussed this evening from committee members or staff, I guess? Okay, I did notice generally the Ontario Association of Committee of Adjustments sometimes have a fall session, but it seems to be that they are not having one this fall. So at least that's what I didn't seem to find on the website anyway. So I guess they're taking a bit of a break. Next year, I guess they'll get back into the swing of things. If there's no other business, our next meeting is October 14, 2025. I don't know, Ashley, if you have any insight on if there are files for our next meeting. Maybe it's early. I guess I only have another week before submitting that.
I believe there was a consent application. Yeah, there will be a meeting.
Because generally, if there isn't, I just need notification and then I cancel the meeting if there is no files for sure. All right, since that has taken care of that, again, our next meeting is October 14th, 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Moved by Member Clark, second by Member Allen, that we adjourn at 5:41. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Everybody have a great evening and a great rest of the summer, and we'll see you next month. Bye for now.